Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show. With your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. It's going to be a good one.
Oh, this is, everybody, you're in store for a good one, you know? And we want to thank you because you've been answering the call, man, and we really appreciate it. We do.
That's right. We can't do it without you, your cousins, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, friends. Don't send the enemies this way, but anybody else, please turn them onto the show. We can't do it without you.
That's right. And as we always say, when you do tell your friends, please tell them you heard it here first.
That's right. And this is going to be a first, if not for player, then probably for technical information for some guys. So it's going to be kind of cool on a couple of levels. But great guest today, man. You're really going to enjoy this guy, and go check out his playing on YouTube. Go buy his material. It's really good. So, and it's very unique and technically ridiculous. So we're going to take a pause for the cause, and we're going to come back with our guest of the week. Fingerstyle player, and I say that because that's how he's technically defined, but much more than that. So fingerstyle player, Mike Dawes. Cass fans, I got 3 words for you right here. Vinyl Me Please. What a cool company. Every month they will send you a new release, and it's not just something you can get in the store. Everything you get from Vinyl Me Please you can't find anywhere else. They work with the artist and the record houses to come up with something really special for you. And it comes with a 12x12 album-inspired art print. And what I think is really cool, a paired cocktail recipe to go with your music. How cool is that? They give you things like colored vinyl, custom lyric books, exclusive artwork, personal notes from the artist, much more. And if you don't like it, they have this program called Swap, where you can actually send it back and pick from another offering in their archives. So it's a really cool thing. Just go to joinvmp.com/AAA or go to our website and hit the link. You'll really dig it. Thanks.
Hey, this is Philip Bino from the Steve Vai Band, and you are listening to Amps and Axes.
All right, and we are back, as promised, with our guest of the week, fingerstyle player, guitarist extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Dawes. Mike, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Excellent, man.
You know,
we've already been doing some talking, so we've already been having some fun. This is great.
We're already in stitches, and we haven't even started yet.
Well, you know, Jeff, I always tell you, I surf the internet. I just scour it as much as I can, and I came across
sometimes on musical sites.
Yes, and
occasionally, yeah.
I came across Mike on Instagram, and I don't know if it was like a spotlight thing on one of the guitar. You know, there's a bunch of these guitar Insta pages that they kind of spotlight guitar players, and I saw him out there, and I was like, "Whoa, man!" I mean, you know, I've seen Andy McKee, and you know, it's got that
good guy.
You know, it's got that Michael Hedges thing, going on, but when you see it, it just doesn't. Your left and right side, man, they get along great. And your brain, because
I don't know about that. I'm terrible at maths.
But the fingering on both hands independently, and the tapping, and those are just it's some of the craziest stuff. And it's like it's
works.
it was done somewhat. You got was it Stanley Jordan, right? Wasn't he the guy that did the two-hand stuff?
Actually, I just when YouTube sort of first came out, I would have been about 17 years old, and one of the first videos I saw on YouTube was actually Stanley Jordan covering Eleanor Rigby. I don't know if you've seen that live clip of him with the big sexy shoulder pads, just being awesome. It was just amazing, and that kind of like changed my world a bit. I was a bit of a rock kid, and I only had an electric guitar, so I certainly got into the tapping side of things through that kind of Stanley Jordan influence. Just being able to see it, being able to hear it is one thing, but when you're a 17-year-old kid and suddenly access to information explodes through something like YouTube, you're just hungry for information, and that kind of visual component sort of definitely attracted me to this kind of world.
It's absolutely changed things. And you mentioned, you as a kid you were a rocker. We're going to go back into Kidville first. Take a ride in the Wayback Machine and find out where. Yes. Excellent. Oh, absolutely. Find out where Mike Dawes was born and raised, and how you got into the wonderful world of music, man.
Oh, right.
Give us some history.
Okay, history. Right. Well, so I was born in a place called Bristol, which is the home of Banksy, the graffiti artist, and Blackbeard, the pirate. I guess those are the most famous exports. Basically, I moved around a lot as a kid and ended up picking up guitar living in a town called Liphook, which is a bizarre name for a little town, super suburban town, like Liphook, a hook in a lip, very bizarre. And I got a guitar at about 12. Probably mainly because the cool kid at school had a guitar, and I just moved to that school and was just sort of like, hey guys, what do I do here? But so when I started playing it, first of all, I was just absolutely raging that my fingers hurt, like most guitar players when they first start, saying everything's wrong, my fingers aren't long enough. And now most of my internet comments are about how my fingers are really long or something, but back then it was infuriating. And I remember one night my dad came back from a band rehearsal. He plays trumpet in a band, and he played Smoke on the Water on the guitar, and I was just so angry because I was like, you don't even play guitar. But yeah, basically what happened in that school, I was exposed to kind of rock stuff, classic teenage stuff. Around that time, it was kind of all about Iron Maiden and Metallica and stuff like that, even bands like Oasis and Green Day. They were the two bands that I used to listen to when I was a little bit younger than that even. And so started a few bands at school, just playing, Guns N' Roses covers and things like that. But when I was 17, I made the switch to acoustic, mainly because of a few influences, one being Eric Roche, who's an amazing player from around the area where I was living. He was teaching in the town called Guildford, and he was an amazing fingerstyle player, playing with percussion on the body of the guitar, something that I hadn't ever seen before. Oh, wow. That's Eric, R-O-C-H-E. All right. And another influence would be a guy called Pierre Bensusan from France, who is sort of this master fingerstyle player who is really a genius. He's far beyond any other musicians that I mix with on a social level, at least. But it turns out my godfather actually designs his tab books and his album artwork. So that's how I got introduced to that world, was through, here's a CD I just designed, have it as a gift. Oh, I checked it out, thought it was completely ridiculous how there was, more black than white on the page in the music, and attempted to tackle, I was used to my kind of like 003, 005, 0 rock riffs. And then suddenly this Pierre Bensusan guy comes along and blows my mind. And I remember one day my dad came home and said, I've got great news. I just found out Pierre Bensusan's music, there's actually 4 guitars playing at the same time. And I was like, really? He was like, no. Totally, like, for a second. I was like, yes.
He gave you hope for about half a second, right? I could do this. Like, if I could just do 4 tracks, I could do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, that plus Eric's kind of percussive playing, plus the tapping stuff from discovering people like Stanley Jordan on YouTube, and the kind of rock metal influence from what I was really playing. I mean, I was trying my best to be a shred kid at that point. I mean, I wasn't very good at it. I always had a kind of melodic approach to lead guitar playing, but I always wished I could play like all those really fast players, just, because I was moving around a lot, and it's a good into a social circle to be the fast guitar player when you're about 15 years old or something. But yeah, I guess all of those influences combined, and another factor was because I was living in small towns, there weren't really any other serious musicians. And I say that not to offend anyone who is a musician in the area. Of course, there were serious musicians, but my social circle was mainly non-musicians. So I found it actually, I was in a few bands, and I'd always found myself being the one writing the music and the one organizing the band practices. And then it kind of got to the point where I was saying, well, hang on, why don't I just try and do it all myself, seeing as that's what I'm doing anyway. Or so it seemed. Again, no offense any drummer of my first ever band who's listening or something, because I don't mean it like that. But I was a control freak. What I'm trying to say is I was a control freak, and I still am. And I started experimenting with drum sounds, bass, harmony, things like that on a single guitar, just on an electric guitar, hitting open mic nights for about a year. And on those open mic nights, do you have open mic night? Does that make sense in the States?
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
That's a thing,
yes.
yeah. Yes. And I would sort of sell little homemade demo CDs for like £1, like a couple of bucks. And through that, earned enough money to kind of get serious about getting a decent acoustic guitar, and then kind of went upright, and the rest is kind of years of writing, and then eventually releasing music. And unfortunately, the wider public and the guitar community has been very kind about the music that I've put out there, and I've been very blessed to have a lot of touring opportunities, and I've kind of been on the road for about 5 years solid at this point.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, we'll get into the recording thing, because I'm curious how you do it, because we're curious how everybody does it. But it's just a little bit atypical that you went from electric to acoustic. Usually, people start out in school with this horrific acoustic guitar, and the strings are half an inch off the neck,
Absolutely,
and nobody can play it, and that's why half the people don't continue, because they can't play it.
Exactly.
What was your first electric?
It was actually a Cream Squire Telecaster that I had for like a week. And the reason I had it for a week, it was a gift. Okay, and the reason I had it for a week was because during that week I discovered Slash, and suddenly wanted to be Slash. And I thought the Cream Telecaster wasn't very Slash, so I, fortunately, because it was a very soon after the initial purchase, I sort of begged my dad to take me into the guitar store, and as like an ungrateful pre-teen, be like, "Thank you, really, it's great. But can I be Slash?" And could have swapped it for Tobacco Sunburst Les Paul. So that's basically what happened. So I had an Epiphone Les Paul Tobacco Sunburst, and then when I got into my metal phase, I bought a Jackson sort of Kelly spiky swirly kind of monstrosity.
Oh yeah.
But it was the Les Paul that I really spent most of my time on, and actually that was the neck profile that I pretty much had built into all my future luthier built acoustic guitars. Wow. I very much like acoustic guitars to feel like not necessarily feel like electric guitars, but certainly feel more accessible to the electric player. So all my little signature guitars, I have very electric player friendly necks, and the Les Paul is something that I would liken it to in terms of string spacing. Even I think it's pretty close to a Les Paul there.
Now, what about scale length for your acoustics?
Scale length. Oh, crikey. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I want to say 650 mil, but I don't know if that translates into American measurements.
I can do it real quick. It's not that difficult. Yeah. I think it's like 25 or something like that.
Something like that. But I know the string spacing at the moment is on my acoustics at the nut 43 mil and 44 mil, depending on the guitar. 43 mil is very, very narrow for a fingerstyle guitar setup. I mean, normally you'd want 46 or more, and then at the bridge I believe it's about 55 mil.
It's actually 25 and a half inch, almost 25.6, but it's 25 and a half for the scale, so 650 mil.
Wow, it's Strat scale.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, well, if you're doing any kind of crazy alternate tunings, that string length really...
A little extra, it does, for going low. And one of the things that actually also helps with that is the guitar I'm playing at the moment. I mean, I have 3 main acoustic guitars that I've worked with professionally. The one I'm touring with right now and have been touring with for the past couple of years, and is the one that is on all but one track on my new record, is made in Germany by a guy with a very unfortunate but recognizable last name, Cuntz, Andreas Kuntz. Seriously, it's amazing. And
oh wow.
it's it's very catchy. Now, this guy, super amazing guy, super awesome guitars. I have a signature model with him. But I do want to give him a shout out on this. I know this is a global sort of podcast, really, but I know you guys are both in the States. But I think he finds it quite hard to get distribution and recognition in the States because of his family name. Whereas obviously in German-speaking countries and China, for example, it's just like any other word.
Sure.
So I want to give him a shout out, Andreas Kuntz Guitars.
Okay.
Do check it out on Google, and because they're amazing. And my signature model is super, super customized to my myself, and he's been very, 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 very happy at taking all my weird measurements on board and making something special. But one of the things I was going to say about his guitar was the strings don't bend at all after the nut. They just go straight as an arrow to the tuning pegs, and that actually holds a little bit of extra tension for those lower tunings as well. Gotcha. Something that I do notice the difference with. You know, you can get about an extra tone down on those guitars just from that little feature.
Well, now, is that the one that has the? I'm sorry, Mick. Is that the one that has the unusual looking headstock? A very nice, thin, trim cut.
Yeah, it's like a bit rock and roll, isn't it? It's a bit spiky.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the one, yeah. So that's the one that you'll see in my things like my Guitar World column videos and my recent 2 videos for the song One by Metallica and the song Slow Dancing in a Burning Room by John Mayer. I covered both these songs, and that's the guitar I'm using in those, both on the record and in the videos.
Awesome. And we will have that link on the show, and awesome. That'll stay out there. And we definitely, man, these things are gorgeous. I'm checking them out now, and oh my god,
they're so cool. I mean, you can see what appeals to me as a former like rock metal dude playing acoustic guitar, right? I mean, they look just savage, but they're so well built. And another thing I like about them is the body is a little bit narrower than something like a stock Taylor, and I like that. When I'm standing up playing, I don't like my shoulder having to lean forward to rest, my picking hand, my picking arm over the guitar. It's a narrow profile, and it's great to just sort of thrash around on. Really, it's got a reinforced top as well, so a lot of the aggressive percussive elements you don't really need to worry about, putting a hole in your guitar or something.
So you get that aggressive with it?
You know what? I just did 2 shows. So I was out with Juston Hayward from the Moody Blues, who I session with quite often. I open his shows with my solo set, but also play with him, so I get to play Nights in White Satin and stuff like that. It's great. But I stayed out to do a couple of shows with a guitarist called Pliny, who is probably familiar to a lot of your listeners. He's an amazing electric guitar player, and we played together at the Roxy. I opened for him at the Roxy in LA, and that was sold out. So he's certainly getting up there. He's got endorsed by Steve Vai and all those cats as kind of the next voice in electric guitar. And he's from Sydney, so we did a few shows there, but because it was a rock crowd, I kind of went a little bit over the top with the percussion. I was really hammering it, and the guitar totally stood up to it. I even hammered my head. I jumped up on a subwoofer, I hit my head on a monitor, and almost fell over. It was wild. It's not a typical fingerstyle show, I must stress to your readers. When you hear fingerstyle guitar, the image is someone sitting on their porch playing Chet Atkins or something, which is great. I do that as well, but at the actual concerts that I do, it's very much as much of a rock show as one man can really
cool.
do, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it's just something that's always been dear to my heart in terms of a performance. I guess Tommy Emmanuel would have a similar approach in that he's just he is the entertainer, isn't he? I mean, he's the guitar player, the entertainer, the everything. He's just the king.
Yeah.
He has that same approach, doesn't he? He's always keeping the audience guessing, and that's something that I always try to do at my shows as well.
Yeah, and I've seen Rick Emmett from Triumph.
Okay.
He goes out with a duet where it's all acoustic.
My dad's old neighbor from way back when ended up roadieing for Triumph, I think.
Nice. Look at that coincidence. And he, when I've seen him, it's not so much because I know like Tommy is like, while the song is going on, you're being entertained, not just because of the song, but what his body language and his mannerisms and everything. It's all part of the act. But with Rick, it's like he tells these things in between the songs that he's usually got the crowd just roaring. I mean, because he's really funny.
Right. That's interesting. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's just his stories though. The room is just. They're just like on edge because they just want to hear what he's going to say next.
Well, that's interesting because that's something that I try to do as well. Like all the stories between the songs, and never standing there suddenly changing tunings. There's always something going on, and a good friend of mine from Finland, Petteri Sariola, who is one of my favorite musicians on the planet, an amazing singer-songwriter, an amazing guitar player. Actually, that was my introduction to Kunz guitars, because he also has a signature model with Kunz, with Andreas. He once told me on one of our tours, every song should have a thing. And I thought that really resonated with me. Give every song a thing. This song is the song has the crowd laughing. This one's the song with the bit of the effects loopy stuff. This one's the audience participation moment. This one's the one where I unplug and walk around the room. Just not having too many tunes in a row of an instrumental set that are kind of too similar, I suppose. Just to keep especially the general public, for an instrumental guitar show, it can be quite demanding for an hour and a half show, especially if they don't necessarily know who you are in the first place. So that's something that I've really taken to heart. So the show is very varied. There's lots of funny moments and lots of serious shred moments. There's the sensitive moments as well. It's
makes it memorable.
It's been a joy to tour. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the plan, and it's a joy to tour this stuff. And it seems to be that wherever I go in the world, the response is pretty similar, except China. China's tricky, and the reason China's tricky is because they don't speak English. And a lot of the setups for some jokes or setups for some of the songs, I'll have to go through a translator on stage. And the translator is normally like a first-year English student or something and doesn't quite translate the mannerisms and the quirky English humor.
It's like the signs. It's just the same as the signs.
It's like sometimes I'll be like, oh, wait for this zinger, and it'll just bomb. Because you'll say it, have like the expression on your face of a punchline, wait for this translator to say it, and then not get it, But so that's it. You have to adjust your vibe if you're doing a lot of setups for tunes. Adjust your vibe in China. No doubt.
We have to get him at the Ram's Head, Jeff.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, because
which is this the Ram's Head Live in Annapolis?
Yes.
Yeah, Ram's Head on stage in Annapolis. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I've played there like a gazillion times with Justin.
Oh, well,
one gazillion times. Yeah, probably like 12 times maybe, because since August 2013, I've been doing these tours with Justin Hayward, and we do about either 2 or 3 nights at the Ram's Head in Annapolis on every tour, and most tours at least have an East Coast portion with that. So I would say a good I'd say over 10 for sure times.
Well, I've seen Justin on the bill there for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's our backyard.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I love it. I love your Krabby Tots.
Krabby Tots.
Krabby Tots. It's on the menu at the Ram's Head. I know it well. That would be an example. That would be an example of something that doesn't translate in China. Right there.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
No doubt.
Translates to a piece of stool or something.
Yeah. Pig's intestines in large clay pot or something.
It's funny you mentioned Justin, because a good friend of ours, when he's not out teching for Matchbox or for Rob Thomas or for Kyle Cook, he texts for Justin. I don't know if it's only in the States or if it's international.
Oh, really?
But
what's his name?
Dan O'Neill.
Maybe he's on the Moody Blues tours, because I'm not on those ones.
And that's what it is. That's what it is. He's
right. Okay, that's interesting. There's about maybe 3 times as many people on those tours. The tours that we do are sort of Justin solo tours, so we have a lot of the crew from the Moody's, but it's a skeleton crew in comparison to the Moody's production, I think.
Right. Well, it would be. Wow.
Yeah. But it's I'll meet them in January. Actually, we're doing the Moody Blues cruise out of Miami, Mexico, Grand Cayman. It's going to be a lot of fun. The Moody Blues are bringing out the Zombies and Alan Parsons Project and all these classic bands, and for some reason, me playing weird guitar. It'll be a blast. I'll finally get to actually see a Moody Blues show.
That's in January?
It is, yeah. January the 2nd through to the 7th, I believe. Yeah,
it's
a sort of prog rock epic experience, and I'm looking forward to that. I've never been on a cruise before, so I hope I don't get seasick while playing or something. But
it'll see if Dan's going to be on that tour. He actually retired from teching, and then Kyle. He was working for Rob Thomas for quite a while, and then he decided to come off the road and do other things. And then Kyle got him back to teching because Matchbox went out on an anniversary tour and Kyle's band opened the show, so he was actually double duty.
Made sense. Yeah.
So
well, that's the same with this crew. I mean, I don't have a very demanding sound requirement. I mean, I've organized my gear to provide the front of house with as little to do as possible, and that was another thing going back to playing in countries that maybe don't have native English speakers. When you're trying to do a sound check with someone that doesn't speak English on the desk, it gets quite tricky. So, I have the same guitar tech in front of house as Juston on these tours. I just bring myself out. That's the only difference. Keep it nice and simple, I think. And now we have such portable gear, these amazing pedals and units and stuff. It's very easy. It's a lot easier to get a really great live acoustic guitar sound than it was even 10 years ago. So it's a good time
especially when you're able to pretty much control everything you want to do and you want to be heard yourself, and you just send them the final result. And that's,
pretty much. I have a mixer. I have a mixer on the stage, so I have a bunch of different pickups going into a mixer, and then different effects getting fed from different pickups output channels, and then that getting mixed essentially stereo and going through a loop or a reverb and out to front of house as just a straight stereo channel. It's in theory it makes sound checks very smooth. In theory.
Now, you said several pickups. Is it not like just a standard 1/4-inch jack coming out of the guitar? Is it something more?
Oh no.
Oh, okay.
No, I've gone a bit crazy. So I have 4 pickups in my acoustic guitar.
Well, there you go.
Which is super weird.
Now, one of them is DiMarzio that you co-designed.
It is indeed. Or 2 of them actually. DiMarzio, but one of them is the one I worked on with them. So I have my core sound is essentially a DiMarzio Black Angel piezo, which rather than sitting under the saddle actually sits in sort of like K&K style. It sort of sits in. You reach in the sound hole and put it on the actual block. So it's less of that kind of quack of a conventional, under saddle transducer. That combined with the DiMarzio Black Angel magnetic pickup, which I co-designed with them and a great guitar luthier called Nick Benjamin in the UK. And that's essentially a passive magnetic pickup, so it needs no batteries, but it has a phase switch on it as well, which allows it to work very seamlessly in any multi-pickup environment. So I didn't really realize how much of a difference a phase switch would make until I tried it, and then it was incredibly apparent. Suddenly my bass player was there, it was amazing. So I have the piezo and the magnetic pickup. I think of it as an acoustic guitar sound and an electric guitar sound kind of blended, if you can think of it like that.
Sure.
And then there's a little microphone in the guitar to pick up some of the body percussion. I EQ all of the low end off that, so it's just the top end, and I have it very, very quiet. That's to make it less feedback prone, but also you only want as little mic as possible for what you're trying to achieve. They're just dangerous, and they sound like mics in boxes. There's no real way around that. So that's subtly blended in. And then I also have another transducer pickup around the position of the heel of my picking hand. Because when I'm playing, it's quite hard to describe to the listeners, but when I'm playing fingerstyle, I sort of kick the heel of my hand back into the top of the guitar. And that creates a sort of kick drum sound. So what I have is another pickup under the wood there, EQ'd like a kick drum with, a compressor on it and everything like that. So every time I lean backwards with my hand, it hits this transducer, and it's, it's like tapping the end of an SM58 or something. It creates a boom, a thud.
Wow.
And
Nice.
That gets sent out, and when the venue has a decent pair of subwoofers or something, it just sounds like the dinosaur in Jurassic Park. It just sounds mega. So people are always asking at the Juston Hayward shows, where's that big kick drum sound coming from? And it's coming straight from the heel of my hand on the top of the guitar. We use it a lot in songs like Question and Nights in White Satin. When I want to bring in a big drum beat, I'll have this big subwoofery boom coming out of the guitar. It's great.
That is cool.
And those come out stereo. So I have 2 holes, each carrying a stereo signal, and those go into my mixer to be split up into 4 separate channels and EQ'd separately on the mixer.
Okay. So it's 2 ring tip sleeve, stereo jacks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Out,
now,
and then they split to 2.
Yeah. Now, that was the way I would explain it, but actually there's one thing that's slightly different to what I just said.
Okay.
And because you guys seem to know detail, I may as well say. 2 of the pickups, the microphone and the undersaddle pickup, are actually internally mixed mono and come out of a mono cable.
Oh.
Right? So I actually have 1 mono cable and 1 stereo cable. Now, the reason I've mixed them internally with a little preamp to come out mono is as a backup system. So essentially, if everything breaks, I can go to Guitar Center and get a jack cable, and I can bluff, 2/3 of a show like that. You know, because just with the microphone and the piezo. And I actually had to do that because I went to see the Moody Blues to say hi when they were on tour over here in the UK, and it got to about 8 p.m. and the manager walks into my little waiting room and he says, "So Mike, do you have your guitar with you? Because the band is still stuck on the M4 and the show is supposed to start right now. Can you play some songs?" I didn't have any gear or anything, but I had my guitar. I just happened to have my guitar in the trunk of my car. Didn't have any monitoring system or anything, but because I had that backup system, I could plug straight into it and go out and, bashed off four or five songs while the audience were waiting. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was completely reliant on a pedal board, right?
Look at that.
Wow.
So yeah, always have a backup, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is really great information.
Oh, hell yeah.
Don't make it so complicated that you can't execute it unless you have every single piece of perfect gear that you need to have.
Because things break. I mean, it just happens. I mean, the cable that comes out of my guitar, you might be able to see in some clips online. It's like a python. I mean, it's like all shrink wrapped, and if something breaks in it, it's very hard to replace a stereo Y cable when you're in, I don't know where, Jacksonville in the suburbs or something on your way to a show. It's hard to replace a mono cable. Very easy. So
sure.
That's nice.
So yeah, that's the gear advice.
And you mentioned the DiMarzio, the Black Angel magnetic sound hole pickup. So that means that you're all steel string.
I am steel string. Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually would. So one of the main reasons I have a magnetic pickup in that guitar, not only to help sort of warm up the overall sound of the acoustic guitar, but it's actually so I can also run an octave sound, a tuner pedal very effectively, and also a distortion very effectively from the guitar. Because I don't want to run those kind of effects from a piezo or a microphone because they'll feed back and squeal and be very inconsistent. But if you think about the magnetic pickup as an electric guitar pickup, then think of any electric guitar effect. I mean, it's as simple as plugging it in, and then you'll have a very effective electric guitar vibe blended with the dry sound of the other acoustic guitar pickups. So you get this really nice hybrid sound. So I can bring in a distortion, and it doesn't sound too offensive. It sounds like an electric guitarist has appeared and is sort of subtly backing me up.
That's cool.
Same thing with the octave pedal. So the Boss OC3, which I'm using, which is actually the only stomp box polyphonic octave pedal in the world. What I mean by polyphonic is you can actually set it to filter out certain frequencies. So you can have it so it only applies the octave sound to the bottom few strings, right? So that's what I have. So I can have essentially the E and A string, the strings 5 and 6, with a little bit of extra low end coming from that pedal, which is great for self accompaniment. But again, I'm running it from the magnetic pickup, so it's only picking up the strings. If I had it running from the piezo, every time I did a kick drum sound, it would think that the thump on the body is a frequency, and it would just kind of be a very dirty, dodgy sound.
Now, here's the crazy part that we actually interviewed a guy named Andy Alt. And
no way. And he's the man. Thunder.
And he made Little Thunder.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're describing the Little Thunder pickup in a pedal.
That's essentially it. Yeah, I mean, he's doing amazing stuff, and Andy's actually a good friend. We met in Brooklyn this summer, and he came to see me at the Iridium in Manhattan, and then we were hanging in LA, and he's the dude. I love him. He's such a nice man. He's just the best. Totally. Andy, I love you if you're listening.
Yeah,
so that's the thing. I mean, I'm not using a Little Thunder right now simply because I'm using the magnetic pickup for a variety of other tasks in this weird kind of niche style that I'm playing.
Sure.
But for anyone looking to do that, to get a solid bass sound polyphonically out of the pickup, do check out Little Thunder. It's awesome.
Yeah, those things
it's
are
very
crazy.
Consistent as well. Yeah, it's very consistent.
It's one thing to see it on a video, but when you're standing in front of the guy and he's playing a Telecaster and there's a bass guitarist with him, it's pretty cool. It's pretty crazy.
It's sick, and it's great for electric guitar as well. I think. For sure, because it does sort of take you almost more by surprise, I think, than if it was on an acoustic guitar.
If you know Andy, here's a real quick story, because I always tell this story to a lot of people. And Jeff, I don't know if you remember this or not. In his interview, the story went like this. Yeah, so I was hanging out with some friends of mine, and they said, hey, let's go back. It was Steve Vai's son. And he goes, well, let's go back to my house. He went back to his house. His wife was there, made a comment about she couldn't figure out HTML. Next thing he knows, he wakes up the next day in Steve Vai's house, and he's their web guy.
Right.
And he's working for him. And I said, how many conversations do you think start off like that? Like, hey, I was out last night, and I woke up in Eddie Van Halen's living room.
Yeah, I mean,
probably back in the 80s, many.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all those guys. Here's the thing: this kind of business, and it is, as much as we don't like to think it is a business, if it's pays your bills, it has to be.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a business element there. It's the only thing I can think of where so many cool things just happen because you're spending your time with people who you get on with, just purely on a social basis. I mean, for example, I just got back from Australia, not because I grinded some shows in Australia, but because I was at NAMM, met this guy, we hung out, had a great time, and he was like, hey, come to Australia and we'll do some shows. It's I wasn't there
there
looking
you go.
for a hustle. I wasn't, it's like, wasn't there hustling? Same thing, the DiMarzio's throw an amazing party at NAMM in the presidential suite of the Hilton. It's sort of a bit of a DiMarzio tradition. So all the cats are there. I mean, if you think about the roster of DiMarzio artists, you can kind of imagine the kind of people that just swing by for a glass of wine in the afternoon, to get off the show floor. But it's just, and Larry's very good at this. Larry DiMarzio, he's very good at, gravitating towards people who are just good people, good hangs and have good vibes. And he owes me one anyway because my best buddy Wilson is now engaged to his daughter. So
there you go.
As long as my buddy doesn't mess up, I think I'm in Larry's good books.
Tell him stay straight and you'll be good.
Don't mess up, Wilson. Yeah, no, he's a good dude. He's the best. But it was at NAMM. It was at NAMM. He came with me, and all good things happen at NAMM. It's bizarre. Hopefully, see you guys there in 2018. It'll be a lot of fun.
We are going to be there.
Yeah, we will be. We will absolutely be there.
Awesome.
So you said like things just happen, and I've been wanting to ask you, like, how did you happen? What was, from what I see, was it your version of Gautier is somebody that I used to know?
Right. Yeah.
Is that what blew up for you?
Yeah, it's interesting to quantify a single moment in time to sort of happen, isn't it? Because obviously that particular moment is a moment where a large amount of people discovered me, no doubt. But it was obviously a long road to get to that point. Essentially what happened was I was in a relationship which was also a musical duo. But we broke up just before going into the studio to record. And that solo piece was kind of my first song, again, because all my material kind of went out the door when that kind of relationship broke up. So I was kind of faced with leaving school, thinking I had a record deal and all these tours, then quickly not having any of that, and then thinking, oh crap, what do I do now? So I was, at the job center getting any kind of teaching job I could or anything to kind of pay the bills of a standard kind of music degree college graduate, and the Somebody That I Used to Know thing came as a response to that. I mean, it's the ultimate breakup song, isn't it? That tune, and it was kind of a very genuine kind of compositional and arrangement kind of approach, right? And I think the fact that it was very genuine, and it just kind of came out super quick. It wasn't a grind at all. It's a very technically advanced arrangement for sure. It's one of the hardest things in my repertoire, but it came out very naturally and very quickly. And when that went online, it went super viral kind of instantly. And I was receiving all these offers from all over the world of, hey, come play in Lebanon, come play in, Finland, come play in South America. But I had no record. This is my one song.
Wow.
I spent 3 years at university writing this record, but it was a duo record. Can't do that by myself, man, right? So I said.
So your duo was all original?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was actually a very early version of one that was going to be on it, but which I only just released as a solo recently. But so I ended up giving myself a target. I said, okay, I've got all these offers of all these tours, but I have like one or two songs. The Somebody That I Used to Know song and maybe one other. So I decided to give myself a deadline of 1 year, and I said to all these people, give me 1 year, I'll have my record, and then we can arrange these shows next year. Deal? And they were all happy with that. So what that did is it gave me this sort of finite space of time and motivation to produce a record. And what ended up happening was, in that process, I taught myself how to book all the flights. I taught myself how to apply for visas and how to book shows and how to, the best way to change your money into funny Russian currencies and, like all the tour manager, business manager stuff, which the traditional music industry would have had taken care of for you. I taught myself to do because I had offers in place and I had the motivation to kind of make that a success. So I ended up releasing my record on April the 9th, 2013, and the first show was in Germany on April the 13th. So I just got it out just in time, and I've literally been on the road ever since for 5 years, having acquired that knowledge as a sort of snowball effect. Like every email that comes in, of which there are a lot, and I'm not going to lie, there's never an evening where I don't worry about not doing enough emails. That knowledge was only really there, and the desire to be independent was only really there because of the response to that video. Because I had so many people saying, if you have a record, we'll bring you to this super rad country on the other side of the world, And for me, traveling was such an important kind of thing to do. So very lucky that that video took off and gave me the motivation indirectly to become an independent musician.
That is just fantastic.
It's awesome,
That is just fantastic.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah,
pretty crazy ride.
Yeah, absolutely crazy ride. I got so into that I forgot my next question to you.
Well, I have one. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So with your with acoustic guitars, and I've heard this from a couple luthiers, the frets are usually very thin and not very tall. Now with this sort of electric type kind of guitar profile thing that you were trying to achieve, so it felt more comfortable to you. Does it have bigger frets than normal, or are they just kind of standard acoustic style type frets?
I think they're pretty standard. I mean, that's not anything that I've ever looked into changing, simply because the first guitar that I had custom made, which was by Nick Benjamin, amazing guitar luthier from the south of England, when it came to frets, I felt that I wasn't informed enough and that he had certain things he wanted to try. And that was one of the things that I wanted to just let him handle. And I just knew the neck profile that I liked, which was from a Taylor 214 steel string guitar that I picked up a year prior. I had no complaints about that at all. So I was pretty confident of him just kind of replicating that. And that's pretty much the sort of structure that I've gone with ever since. I do obviously play a lot of the same tunes very often at shows, because I'm playing shows all the time, and a lot of the songs are on similar frets, so they wear down. So I get the frets redressed maybe like once a year or something like that. But yeah, I have no real arguments for and against. Sorry, I can't be more helpful with that question.
No, because now it even frustrates me more, because when I watch you play, I'm like going, I can't do that on a regular acoustic guitar.
No, you can't. Right.
So
here's the thing. Anything that I'm doing in my music can be done on a normal off-the-shelf acoustic guitar. And a lot of the time, it's written on a normal off-the-shelf acoustic guitar. I have a bunch of acoustic guitars, and sometimes I'll just pick one of the cheap ones up and I'll write a song on it. It's the live sound, which is what is affected more by things like high-end pickups and knowing what you're doing with the EQ and the signal path. Okay. The other thing is action. So the action, for me, I play very lightly because I play with my real fingernails. I don't use acrylics. Okay. So I can't play too loud because I don't want to break a nail. But also, I've always played quite loud. I'm quite an introverted player, and I let the amplification really do its work. I play so very low action because of that, because I'm not flat picking and getting a lot of fret buzz, right? Okay. And the string spacing suits my fingers perfectly with a 43 or 44 mil at the nut kind of spacing. Frets, don't even worry about. It's the action that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but again, that's for me, right? I mean, I know players in the similar scene who have a higher action and play with thicker strings, and all of this works for them. So here's the thing. So my buddy Petteri Sariola, who I mentioned from Finland, we tour together very often, and we have a very similar style. But he does a lot more strumming and interesting sort of rasguedo techniques in his right hand because he doesn't really have fingernails. So it doesn't sound too abrasive to the ear on steel strings. But he'll have a harder time getting artificial right-handed harmonics than I will, as I have the nail to be able to pick that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's pros and cons to all the different things, and all of those little pros and cons, whichever path you decide to go down, that will more and more define your sound, and people will be able to understand that that's you when they listen to it on record, So it seems kind of pointless looking for a correct answer in that, where it might be that the decision that you make and the path you choose to go down is what defines you as a composer.
Well, it also makes you unique.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And I do remember what my next question was, and you're talking about tone and everything else. Recording. What is your recording process like? What do you use? Is it the same as your live rig? How do you go about it?
Okay. So the things that the only thing that I really use that is the same as the live rig is, well, first of all the pickups go in to the desk,
Okay.
And the magnetic pickup is split at the Boss OC3 octave, because it has a direct out and an octaved output, right?
Okay.
So my magnetic pickup will go in, I'll get the clean magnetic pickup sound, but I'll also get an octave sound. I'll record that regardless of whether I'm going to use it or not, because on recordings, sometimes we'll fade up that channel at a certain powerful moment, and it'll just give that little bit of extra meat that I want,
Okay.
So I'd advise doing that. There's no harm in taking an octave signal. But in terms of microphones, I have a stereo pair in the room of sort of LDCs, which is about 2 meters away from me, I would say.
Wow.
I'm sat in a chair, and I have 2 condensers in front of me, one sort of around 14th fret, one's sort of aimed at the bridge area. And then there's another large diaphragm condenser above the nut. So sort of leaning over, catching these little sparkly resonances that you get on acoustic guitars around the nut. Now, it's not something people often think of picking up, but very low in the mix, it adds this little extra layer of presence that I really like. So I actually have 10 channels. let me count these on. Stereo pair, stereo
10.
on the guitar, one on the nut, then we have the 4 pickups, and then the magnetic split with the octave. So that's 10 channels. And then any effects that I'm using, I will try and find a hardware solution first. So I won't do any live effects in the studio because you'll hear the stomp box clicking and all of this. And I pass it back in and record in, say, one particular distortion pedal that I like. Sometimes there'll be an effect that I want, but I can't achieve with the pedals that I have, so I'll do something in Pro Tools. And this is all under the watchful eye and control of the amazing Josh Clark from Bath. He has a studio called Get Real Audio, and it's Bath in the UK, very close to Bristol. I've known him for a very long time. He's actually sort of the go-to bluegrass producer in the UK. But he knows acoustic music, and he knows, he makes sure everything's in phase, make sure the room sounds great and everything. And I did both my records with him. He mixed and mastered both. And this new record, Era, a lot of the press, actually, Guitar World, Total Guitar, all these magazines are all saying the production on this record for an acoustic guitar is like the best they've heard. It's a remarkable acoustic guitar recording, and I'm very privileged that it's my songs that are being recorded. He's done an amazing job.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, man.
That's 10 tracks for a single acoustic guitar. That's
and then if I'm doing looping, the looping will be done in Pro Tools, so
sure.
That will multiply the amount of tracks, obviously. It's pretty messed up,
and then
but it works.
Your dad comes home and he goes, "Hey, there's 10 guitars on this."
Exactly, all playing exactly the same thing. Exactly. No, it's just a very full sound. But really, I wouldn't be able to make these records without Josh. No doubt, he just has so many years of experience with acoustic recording acoustic guitars, and the fact that I've brought that extra layer of kind of specific areas of the body and specific techniques that we have to capture. We've sort of learned the process together. And the first album, we sort of, learned what worked and what didn't work, and we really applied that for this new record, Era. And I couldn't be happy with the sound of it.
Yeah, well, if he's the recording bluegrass guru, then he's definitely familiar with all acoustic instruments and how to get the best out of it. That's
even the banjo.
Maybe a couple.
Yeah.
Even the banjo.
Yeah, the banjo. What did I hear? I heard somebody say something about the banjo the other day, the worst tuned instrument on the planet. Because they really just don't, they're not very friendly with tunings. Like
intonation-wise?
Yeah, it's just because of the way that it rings and,
right.
It's one of those things, but.
Well, I used to live with a concert harp player, and that's 47 strings just sitting there. Every time a door opens, they go out of tune, those things. And sometimes the strings a string will just break. You're not even playing it. It's just a huge harp. And because of the tension's so great.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you, when a string breaks on a harp in the corner of a room, that's a terrifying sound. Because the soundboard's going to resonate, and you just get this sound as if someone's just dropped a piano down the stairs. It's horrifying. Nothing as scary as a harp just snapping a string spontaneously.
Well, the string snaps and hits 46 other strings.
Exactly.
In its execution.
Exactly. Yeah, it's messed up. It's good fun.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Well, I tell you what, man, this is more than I could ever expected. You've given out like all the cool little nuances and secrets and all that. I think it really answers a lot of questions, man. Because
thanks, man.
When you're watching that stuff, I don't know about you, Jeff, but I'm just like, how in the world? Because it doesn't look like you're pounding on the guitar.
That's like I said. I don't hit hard.
Yeah,
I let the pickups do the work.
Yeah, and that blows my mind because I'm going, look, I've played really high end, expensive Taylors. Gone to the store, picked up the $14,000 8 whatever, with all the abalone all over it and everything else. And I'm going, well, this is a nice neck. It plays nice, but I can't do the stuff that I would be able to do like on my SG or any of the electric guitar stuff. And, then you see somebody doing this stuff that you're doing, and I'm going, how in the world? I mean, what is that setup on that thing, So,
well, I mean,
there you go.
Also, you have to remember that I've chosen a very specific path, and I made that decision about 10 years ago. And it's a very specific style of playing.
Yeah.
And also the instrument, when you play that, the instrument does tend to open up and sort of be more accommodating, and you get to know all the nuances of your instrument, really. And I've certainly got to know mine over the years. It's certainly harder to do this stuff on a guitar that, even if it's a new luthier-built guitar, the first few weeks, there's still a learning curve there,
Yeah, you got to find all those spots.
And also the strings, you got to have the correct gauges. I mean, I use, as default, I have a dadgad set on my guitar. So it's only ball strings, but I have 13, 17, and 56 from a set of mediums, and then the 42, 32, and 24 from a set of lights. So it's hybrid set up for DAD, GAD tuning, but to have perfect tension at that tuning. Now, that's what I will use live, because my tunings live tend to be around there. So they'll be dadgad based, so I'll change a few strings every now and then. In the studio, I'll have strings for whatever tuning I'm doing that song in, bang on the correct tension, So say I'm doing a tune in, I don't know, C, G, D, G, B flat, C. I'll get a bunch of strings specifically for that, just for that one day in the studio. Because the guitars will sound stronger, the harmonics will ring longer, there'll be less buzz, things like this.
More balanced.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the studio. That's as obvious as, say, just changing your strings before you go into the studio. It's if you're playing in a weird tuning, you've got to have the correct gauges.
That's
basically.
So cool.
Obviously, you can't change your string gauges between every song and the live show. And I tend to travel light, so I'll only bring one guitar on the road with me for my solo shows. Maybe one day if I get to the point of having a different guitar for every song, then that's a different matter.
One guitar and 35 sets of strings.
Oh yeah. Now here's the thing: I change strings every 2 shows, and that's not because they necessarily die. I mean, they do lose their bright characteristic, of course, but I won't do more than 2 shows because of the risk of a break, because of all the tuning that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So if I'm tuning the G string up and down like 3 or 4 times in a set, there's going to come a point where that's going to break, So I change strings to prevent breakage rather than to sustain tone.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Which is
especially there's nobody to go to. There's nobody to hide behind. It's you there. If the string breaks, the show stops.
Oh yeah, I just have to stand there and make something up. It's terrifying, but it's fun. And it's live. It's happened a few times. You just have to change your string on stage and tell a funny story and hope the punchline happens at the same time. You can kick back into the song.
It's
which you can do.
It's like I saw Rick Emmett. And I was talking about him before. And Dave Dunlop is his other guitar player. And Dave plays Godin, whatever you want to call it.
The multi-act, the MIDI compatible.
Yeah, pieces. And he had a nylon string guitar. And Rick, at that time, was using one of those Space Saver Yamaha things that had the two brackets that had nothing in them. It was like it was like a stick with these two pieces, right? Yeah. Well, his battery went dead, and they actually had to go get him a 9-volt battery. Yeah, and Dave,
I've been there.
And one of the funny lines was Dave goes, "Well, if your guitar was made in Canada, it wouldn't have this problem." Because they're both made from, they're both from Canada.
Sure, yeah. Well,
that's funny.
The funny thing with that is the 9-volt battery thing. I mean, that's happened to me a bunch of times. In July, I played over at Hotel Cafe in Los Angeles, and it was 2 sets. And the last song of my last set in the first half, the battery went, so I had to kind of spontaneously play unplugged as if it was planned. And then literally run to the 7-Eleven in the interval and grab the 9-volt battery. And the guitar I have has 2 9-volt batteries in it. I have one for my my kick drum pedal and one for my microphone and piezo.
The mixer.
But one of them I have to take the strings off, take the magnetic pickup out because it's kind of in the neck block. The other one's very easy. It's just on the edge of the guitar. But there's one battery I'd rather lose than the other, shall we say?
Yeah, for sure. Do you change that one every 2 shows as well?
No, not at all. The batteries last a long time, and actually on the Juston Hayward tours, of which I do a couple of tours a year, we have a great guitar tech, Chris Trapea from Philadelphia, and he essentially changes my batteries every other time he changes the strings. Okay. So I'm very grateful to not have to worry about that when he's out on the road with us. It's a great guy to have working on my guitar.
Cool. Now you mentioned changing strings and having to do one on the fly, live situation. Do you still have the pins in the bridge, or do you have the? Okay.
Yeah, so I've got pins in the bridge and have to kind of just force them out aggressively if it's one string. Worst case, I'll have to slacken it and reach in and pop it out, or you can actually get these little mechanisms that sort of you put over a pin and it kind of pops it out for you. It's almost like a wine bottle cork opener,
pin puller kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So it's as if you're prepared. It's no harm. I mean, Michael Hedges was amazing at changing strings on stage. I saw some footage somewhere of him blindly changing a string, and he would count down the amount of revolutions it would take to get the string in pitch, and then immediately play the song without even checking it, and he nailed it. It was sort of like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just played the song. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, how does that even? The guy was on another level.
Absolutely. I mean, because that all depends on what angle it goes into the hole on the tuning peg.
Yeah.
And oh my God!
Yeah,
wow,
all that stuff. Yeah,
that is crazy.
Yeah,
I'm a stickler for tuning. I'll be checking my tuning a lot. Especially you go from a cold dressing room to a warm stage, things like that.
Oh,
how it is. Sure. And I have actually recently got into having a headstock tuner on the guitar on stage as well, because I do occasionally actually unplug and put in this thing called a Tonewood amp on my guitar. Have you guys checked that out?
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Tonewood amp is amazing. It just sort of sticks on magnetically to the back of your guitar, takes a sound from your pickup and projects reverb or whatever effect you want through your sound hole.
Yeah, there's delays and reverbs and all this other.
It's just friggin' crazy, man. I don't know how they do it. It's a husband and wife in Arizona. It's honestly, in my opinion, it's the best thing since the capo for acoustic guitar. So I'll if the room is of a certain size, like small enough, for example, I'll unplug, put the Tonewood amp in, walk around the room strumming a song, and the reverb will be there following me around. And for that, I have a little headstock tuner on as well, just to be safe. Those little TC Electronic ones. I just left it in Sydney, actually. Damn, I just noticed. But yeah, hey TC Electronic, if you're listening.
Right. I need a box full.
Yeah, hook me up with those
box
headstock tuners. They're great.
Wow.
I actually saw Andy McKee at Ram's Head Live, And
awesome.
he's such a tuning guy. He started a song, got a couple bars in and said, I'm sorry, this G string is driving me nuts. Yeah. And we were like, couldn't hear a difference. Didn't even pick up on it, but it was something that was obviously bugging him. And he stopped, actually tuned the guitar, and then went and played the song. And it was like, wow, this guy's like really got a really great ear, or something is showing that he's not in tune and it's driving him nuts.
It's true. I mean, you can hear it, especially if you're so used to practicing your own song. You can hear if it's different, even just by a few cents. Sure. And I noticed that a lot. For me, it's always the second string. Especially in dadgad tuning, for example, because say you're in the key of D, and you've got your fourth is your open G string and your fifth is your open second string. So it's very easy to raise that fourth, play a fifth on the second fret of the G string. So you've got your second fret of the G string and your open second string as a unison. Mm-hmm. And because it's so low down and the tension is so delicate, it's so easy to hear that clash if they're not quite in tune. I'm always finding that right down there. It's a very easy way of telling if your second string is a little bit sharp, or if you maybe need to ease the pressure off your third string. Sorry, that was super geeky. I hope people can follow.
They love it.
Fine. And and if it is that way, if it is that way, you just tell them there's a chorus on the guitar.
There you go.
Exactly. You can do it.
A little chorus pedal. There you go.
There's a few tunings that I really like that have unison strings in, and it does make you sound like you're playing a 12 string. It's awesome. I know Michael Hedges did that a lot. His All Along the Watchtower version has, I think, unison A's in the middle. I might be wrong. Maybe it's D's. And I've got a couple of tunes on the new record that have a minor second clash in the middle of the strings. So my D string is tuned to a C sharp, and my G string is tuned to a D. So you have this really haunting kind of clash in the middle, and you can do some really interesting things with it. I like it a lot.
That's cool, very cool. That is very cool.
Geeky stuff.
Totally geeky stuff. Well, part of our audience is really going to get into all the details and the minutia here. It's great.
Awesome. Well, you know what? If they're interested in checking out more stuff, if they they could search on YouTube. I have a few in-depth sort of gear discussions where I'm sort of at a sound check and just sort of walking people through the specific pedals on my board and stuff like that. So if you just type in Mike Dawes pedals or something like that, I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
Well, here's what we're going to do.
Very cool.
And this is what we always do. We're going to take all your links, your website, your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of that stuff. That is going to live on the show in
perpetuity.
That's right. And that'll go out into the archives after the week. And look, we can't tell our listeners enough, and we usually get hate mail because guys are like, hey, I'm going broke buying all this stuff. But you got to check it out because it's a whole nother world, man. I mean, it's this craziness that when you're tired of hearing, and I'm not going to use a name, but any of those guys that can shred faster than what physics allow,
or you just want an alternative to listen to,
exactly.
to whatever music you generally listen to, rock or blues or whatever you want, something different. This is it.
Yeah, and it's not hard to ingest.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially, I will just say something that is very apparent on the I'm very grateful for the positive reviews of this new record. So I just put out my second record, which is called Era, and it's much more chilled out than the first one, which was totally not intentional. I went into this thinking, hey, I want to write more crazy rock hecticness so I can go and play with all my friends who are in metal bands, I want to keep up with those guys. And I ended up writing this record where there are a few songs like that, of course, but it's a very technically advanced record, but in a very subtle way. So it's almost like easy listening unless you want to listen to some crazy shit, because it's there. It's very hard to explain. The performance.
It's diverse.
The compositional techniques are really. I really hope some people pick up on some of the things that's actually going on there, but it's presented in a way that's purely about the music and not about the show, if that makes sense. You can see it if you come to the show, but it's a listening record, which I think is something that's very easy to sort of glance over in this style, which is a very visual style. I mean, you can't deny it is a visual style of music. It's lots of technique and two-handed stuff, but you know, you got to be able to take a record, put it on, close your eyes, and enjoy it. And hopefully that's what I've achieved with this record. So I hope people really enjoy it.
Nice. Well, I'm sure they will.
That's a cool thing because, you know, when you hear some of this stuff, especially with these guys like yourself, it's like, even though you know, like, as a guitar player, like, my God, what is he doing? You know, like the two-handed stuff, or even if it's just, you know, the finger style stuff. There's so much more emotion that has to go into it for it to be presented in a way that it gets accepted.
A lot of honesty. Yeah, and I think that also goes back onto why I think that Somebody That I Used to Know thing was well received, because it was a genuine expression. You know, it wasn't trying to cash in on a popular song or anything like that. It was just, I am 100% dedicated to expressing something through the process of arranging this piece of music. And I think people can identify with something that's honest versus something that's just trying to get clicks, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I'm so happy to see that is apparently still possible in this day and age. And I'm not going to go any deeper into that comment, but I'm very happy that you feel that is the case.
I'm
that's
optimistic
awesome.
about that. I don't know if that's true, but I'm optimistic about it.
Good. Stay that way.
I think that translates live. I think if you're standing on stage and playing something that isn't genuine, people can spot it super easily. Online is different because there's production and there's the marketing and the presentation. But when it's just you and a guitar and you're standing on stage and you're playing something, you're either presenting an emotional reaction or you're not. Right? That's what a live performance is. So, and if you get a moment of pin drop silence in a theater or something, then you know that you're expressing something honest and people are receiving it, you know, and giving it back. So that's one of the greatest feelings in the world, you know. For sure.
I feel sure that we're going to see that happen next time you and Justin are at Ram's Head in Annapolis, because we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Excellent.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, I'll have to hit you guys up. I think at the moment, I would assume we would be out. This isn't an announcement of a tour. This is me assuming that I or we would be returning to the States sometime either summer or fall 2018.
Okay. Well, we'll see you at NAMM.
Do not take that as gospel, but I will see you at NAMM. Yeah, I'm going to be at NAMM. I'm going to be on the Moody Blues cruise, and I'll probably do a handful of pop-up shows in January as well, just to keep the fingers moving.
Nice.
So cool.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Nice. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure, man. Anything we missed? Did we miss anything? Your new.
So your listeners are mainly in the States or truly global?
Global.
Yeah, definitely global.
Yeah.
Well, I may as well. And when's this going out?
This will be going out actually later today.
Oh,
which is
okay,
which is what today is what November 1st. Look at that.
Okay, excellent. Well, if there's any people in the UK listening, the agent will be a bit annoyed at me for prematurely announcing, but on Friday I will be announcing my first ever full UK headline tour. Which
there you
will
go.
be in support of this record. And so this is technically the world exclusive on that. Tickets on sale on Monday the 5th or 6th, whatever it is. And then I'm going to be doing these hit and runs, as mentioned. I'll be at NAMM, be in the States. I should be hitting up China again next year, hitting up Europe. Yeah, I'm just everywhere. Just head over to Facebook. If you search for Mike Dawes on Facebook, you'll see all my tour dates and stuff, and hopefully we can hang out and say hi and get nerdy about gear.
There you go.
There you go, man.
Easy.
All right, Michael, thank you so very much for taking the time from, I don't even know where you are right now. Where are you right now? Do you know?
I'm in the UK, but I've only been here for like 2 days, and tomorrow I'm going to Germany. So, yeah. I've got my pedal board in front of me, actually, because I just got some new gear. I got one of these Dunlop mini volume pedals, which I haven't tried out. I just went on Amazon and got one of those, and anything to reduce the board space, because when you're flying with your pedals and all of that, it's nice to keep the weight down as much as possible. If you save a pound of pedal, that's a few CDs you can take for your merch table, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, there you go.
And it's a pound less your back and shoulders have to carry.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
although I think I'm fixed in the upright, leaning forward, guitar carrying position for the rest of my life at this stage. But it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
There
fun.
you go.
It's beautiful. Pleasure to speak to you guys. Pleasure to be part of your.
Right back at you, Mike. Thank you very much. Safe travels and much continued success. And I hope we see you in January and then performing with Justin sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Take care, man.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
As a special offer to our audiences, warbyparker.com will give you a 5-day home try-on complete with 5 pairs of glasses to choose. Just go to warbyparkertrial.com/AAA to get a free 5-day home try-on. Warby Parker makes buying glasses online easy and risk-free. Their home try-on program allows customers to order 5 pairs of glasses to be shipped directly to them where they can try them on in the comfort of their own home. For every pair of glasses sold, Warby Parker distributes a pair of glasses to someone in need. Warby Parker makes buying glasses fun, easy, and pain-free. Warby Parker keeps their styles highly curated, fashion-forward, and extremely wearable while including high-quality lenses and coatings at no additional cost. Warby Parker makes your experience completely risk-free and free shipping all around. Visit warbyparkertrial.com/AAA to begin your free home trial-on experience today.
And there you have the story.
How about that?
Man.
I love that because he just opened up the doors. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He just gave you all the info. You want to know it all? He puts it right out there because he's not trying to trick you. You know, you can tell that it's just like, hey man, yeah, I'll tell you, show you, doesn't matter. Here's what I'm doing. And
this is what I do. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you want to learn it, well, good luck because it takes a little bit.
It's a big learning curve.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But how cool is that, man?
Yeah, great conversation.
Yeah. God, and they'll just to let everybody know, don't drop the episode when you hear the outro music because we had a little bit of a thing right at the beginning where we were talking to him because when we got on, we started talking about his itinerary.
Right.
Yeah, so that's going to be right at the end. So when the music fades out, I'm gonna bring that back in. I want everybody to stay on and listen to that because it's
big Easter egg there.
It's pretty good, pretty good stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you what, I just don't. I can do some finger picking stuff, but when it comes to like those, because you see these guys now, they're using not only their index, their middle finger, they're using their third, their pinky on their right hand to tap, and they're doing these extraordinary like arpeggiated chords and stuff, and it's like, where is this coming from, man? But God bless them,
harmonics in them. And, it's fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and
listen to.
And, I was going to say it's not like, oh God, it's actually very entertaining, and I love when they do songs that we know, right? Mm-hmm. Andy McKee does Africa, and
Toto.
Yeah, and he does another one with Want to Rule the World. What's the name of that band?
Tears for Fears.
There you go. He does a version of that, right? And it's so neat because you go, oh my God, he's got every little nuance of the vocals in there.
Yeah.
That's the part that's cool. Yeah, man. It's awesome stuff.
There are plenty of solo guitar players, players, singers, they're everywhere,
Oh my God, yeah.
But this is different. This is like this takes 2 guitars and a bass and a drum and a vocal melody and puts it all there on the guitar. Yeah. And it's like, first just to figure out how to execute that on the guitar, like what part is played where on what string, and then to actually be able to figure out how to execute it after that simultaneously.
Yeah, and the tuning of the guitar.
Oh yeah.
Because they're doing all kinds of crazy tunings now, and some of these fan guitars and stuff, they're getting crazy with this stuff.
Yeah,
which is cool.
You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it in standard tuning. You couldn't do a lot of standard tuning. There's no way
your hand would be
access
12 inches
note.
long.
Right, you can't access every note that needs to be everywhere at the same time.
Exactly.
Trying to figure out what tuning that you'll be able to execute it in is a science. Oh
yeah.
So it's really cool, man.
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
it's I look at it as like it's almost like refreshing. It's like cleansing your palate.
Absolutely.
You know, you hear the blues guys, you hear the metal guys, you hear all those guys, and it's, you know, it's usually an electric guitar. Even the country guys, you know, it's that thing. And then you hear one of these guys, and it's like a whole new genre, and you go, oh, look at that. You know, there's this whole other world that I didn't know about, and that's the
really
cool part,
it's really intense and complex, yet very
fluid,
easy on the ears, and fluid and relaxing at the same time.
Isn't that wild?
It's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
Really neat.
Look at that
so until next time, my friend.
That's right, because we're going to try to do 8 things at once.
That's right. Stick around. I'm Mick Marcelino.
I'm Jeff Bober.
And we're always saying,
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.
travel itinerary.
It's just the worst. It's just absolutely the worst. I just did a tour in my first time in New Zealand and Australia. So obviously I was coming from London, so that's London, Singapore, Christchurch, New Zealand. Go to Australia, fly from Melbourne back to Singapore, back to London. I'm here now, not knowing where I am, and then I'm going to Germany the day after tomorrow. Then after I play one show in Hamburg, and then I have to fly Hamburg, Frankfurt, London, Vancouver, San Francisco, Maui to do one gig in Maui, in Hawaii. And then back again, and then a week of one UK show, and then one little festival in Germany again at the end of November. It's dumb. So like this month is just like hit and runs that have just been terribly organized by myself, because they just come in at the last minute and they're like, yeah, all right, why not? And to be honest, the Hawaii thing, that's like a private gig for Juston.
Yeah.
So I don't, I'm kind of summoned to that. I don't really have much choice really. Well, I do, but I've got to say yes to that stuff. But it's all about the air miles. I mean, collect those air miles, man, because that's one way to make it easier for you with a guitar. No doubt. If you're traveling with a guitar on the cabin and all of that stuff, I have to deal with a lot of grumpy check-in people. And second you have any kind of status with an airline, it makes it a lot easier.
Well, there you go.
For sure. But I mean, Jesus, that logistically,
I know it's dumb.
It somehow still has to be relatively profitable, or at least like a break even. It's like, how is it even possible?
Well, the thing is with the Hawaii thing, that's the weird thing. I mean, I've just done a New Zealand tour, and then I'm coming back, and I'm in Europe, and I'm just going to do some festivals in Germany. That's fine. Mm-hmm. The Hawaii thing is because it's a private thing that just sort of happened, but it's part of this kind of infrastructure around Juston Hayward. It's sort of like we charge for our time as employees of that tour package, if that makes sense. So
sure.
Yeah. So it's sort of like we get a day rate, So even if I'm sitting on a plane, we're not hemorrhaging cash or anything like that. But if it was my own thing, I mean, goddamn.
Right. Well, I would think you would be a little bit off your rocker there, son.
Wow. Hey ho, I like to go everywhere and do everything. But yeah, I probably would have positioned Hawaii after Australia and not after Germany.
Yeah.
Like I probably would have not gone back to Europe for a week and then gone back to the Pacific. That's kind of dumb. But
and your
anyway, hey ho, it's good to be here.
Your carbon footprint has only grown immensely in over 3 gigs.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm not flying private, so
that's good.
The way I look at it is that they would have flown those planes anyway.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
That is true. With or without
me. Exactly. Yeah. Although they'd like you to think otherwise. I just found out. So I'm flying from. So I have to go so I'm in this festival in Hamburg. It's a great festival. It's called Hamburg Guitar and Tage, like Hamburg Guitar Weekend. And I did it last year, and it's amazing. It's with some great players. And flying Hamburg to Bristol, which is kind of where I live in the UK, is actually a very, very easy route. But I'm flying with British Airways, and they just announced this policy. I just saw Scott Henderson posting about it on Facebook, the guitar player Scott Henderson, saying that they've just launched a policy where they're banning any guitars from being in the cabin. Like, flat out, like...
Oh, you gotta be kidding me, man.
And if you turn up with a soft case, they can just refuse you entry to the plane because they don't want to be liable for any damage. They'll force you to check it, or they'll ban you from being on the plane because you're not prepared.
Wow.
Which sucks because I'm already on tour and I have a soft case. So it's kind of like... It's just... It's interesting times. I mean, in the States, you guys have some kind of legislation, I think, for that stuff, where it's like, if there's space, you are allowed to at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that could change at any moment, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anything in your country could change at any moment, and my country as well. It's kind of just like, and just super random times.
Right.
But, yeah, right. But anyway, it's great to be here. Glad we can make this work.